Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Rise Above Cancer podcast. So it's been a little while since I recorded an episode. Full disclosure, I've been quite ill for the last 6 weeks. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice or not, but I've been quite poorly. Like, I'm doing okay. I was really ill in bed for like a week, and then I developed a cough, which I still have. It's just not as bad. And then I kind of had a head cold, so I'm kind of on the tail end of it now, I hope. It's been a long 6 weeks. I've kind of put off doing this episode because I'm very much a perfectionist in most things that I put my time and energy into. So knowing that I haven't been feeling my best and obviously wanting to sound good when doing these episodes. But it's just gotten to the point now where the longer I leave it, the harder it's going to be for me to do. So I'm here, I'm trying my best. Sorry if I end up sneezing, coughing, etc. During this. So let's get into it. So this episode is about navigating motherhood while I'm currently living with cancer. I've always wanted to be a mum. Ever since I was little, I remember, stereotypical little girl. I remember my first pram. It was a ladybird looking like plastic pram. And then I remember the day then when I was upgraded to this mint green pram, like proper old style pram, bassinet type. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. Took it everywhere that I could with me. I'd walk it round the town where I lived with my parents. I absolutely loved it. I was always that kid at parties that if there was a baby there, I would be like, right, let me go over, let me help, what can I do? I absolutely loved it. When I was little, my cousin was born when I was about, I think maybe like 8, 9, somewhere around there. And I would literally sleep over my auntie's house because I wanted to be there to help look after my cousin, help changing nappies, feeding, everything. I have a younger brother who was born when I was 17. So, I've been around babies quite a lot, and I've always had that kind of motherly instinct. And just absolutely loved being around children and stuff. And when I was younger, I always said that I wanted to be a teacher. So I went to uni to be a primary school teacher. But then after the first year, I soon realised how much work and effort it is to become a teacher. And it's not just the stuff you have to do during the day. I loved being in school and I loved being in placement, but it's all the extra stuff you have to do at home. And I quickly realised that if I do my degree in just primary school teaching, then this is what I have to do for the rest of my life. So changed course. Still, education. Which was my degree, so still kind of stuck in the same field. And my friendship group always called me Mum. It might have been because I was the oldest one, and still they remind me that I'm the oldest one of the group. But so I've always felt like a mum. So Aaron and I got married in 2017. And we did a couple more holidays and stuff after we got married. We were supposed to try for a baby after July 2020, when I was supposed to go on holiday to Florida, to Walt Disney World with my parents. But then obviously, as we all know, 2020 was an absolute write-off. So obviously the holiday got cancelled, and I think it was April, May time then we decided to try for a baby, obviously not knowing how long it was going to take for us to get pregnant. I was always quite mindful, even though at the time I was 31, in 2020. That obviously, 31 in my mind was quite an older age to get pregnant. And there was a couple of family history stuff that I was quite worried about as well, which obviously everything turned out to be okay. But at the time, it was quite scary. So, like I said, we were trying in April, May, and then by the end of July, I found out that we were pregnant. So thankfully, and luckily, it didn't take us long. Pregnancy-wise, I was so looking forward to being pregnant. Like, the thought of being pregnant, I've always, even since being a child, I'd love the idea of being pregnant and having a bump and going through everything that you do in pregnancy. But following the similar path, my pregnancy was also a bit of a write-off. So even obviously before I was diagnosed with cancer, it was a really difficult pregnancy anyway. I was suffering with really bad sickness, not just morning sickness and feeling sick. I was being physically sick every day. No matter what I ate, drank, it was really bad. I lost a lot of weight during pregnancy as well. So by the time I was 9 months pregnant, I actually weighed less at 9 months pregnant than what I weighed before I was pregnant, which is mental. And obviously, while I was pregnant, we were in lockdowns and COVID was going on. So when I was going for my scans and stuff, Aaron could come in for the 5-10 minutes that the scan was for. But then he had to leave straight away. So I had to have all the midwife appointments and stuff on my own, which was, for your first pregnancy as well, it's quite scary. And at the time, so I was even though I was being sick and stuff, I took no time off work whatsoever, which looking back now, obviously, my outlook and things have changed, which I'll go into a little bit later. But I had a really stressful job and a responsible job, and that year in particular is probably the hardest working year I've ever had in my entire life. A lot of people were furloughed. I was one of those people that wasn't. And obviously not taking away anything from, all the doctors and nurses and everyone that worked in the NHS. Obviously they had a definitely harder job than I did. But for me, it was quite a stressful year, and a lot was expected of us during that time. So I obviously had all that to take into anyway. And then in December 2020, when I had my eye test, which obviously found out that there was something not quite right. I went to my local hospital first after that eye test. And again, I had to go into that completely alone. Aaron was not allowed to come in with me at all. So that was terrifying. And having that one-on-one with the doctor and seeing the scan on my own, having that gut feeling that I knew that this was not good, and she'd mentioned the word tumour and potentially basically being cancerous, and it was really, really tough. And obviously when you're pregnant as well, obviously everything's heightened, and your hormones and your emotions and everything, and it was a really tough time. And then obviously we went up to Liverpool then, and that's when I had my diagnosis. And obviously being quite heavily pregnant at that time, I was 6 months pregnant when I was diagnosed. And I've spoken about this before in the Heavy Mental podcast episode that I did with Reese. In that moment when I was told, I'm sorry, but it is cancer, for about 5 seconds, I was obviously upset, but then something switched in me, and I was right, you need to ask questions, you need to find out how this is going to work, not for your sake, but for Evans for the baby. And I don't know, like something just kicked in. I don't know if it was kind of like survival mode, and obviously we asked loads of questions, and because they haven't really experienced anything like my case, obviously they didn't have all the answers. And they did say that having the surgery there could be risk of miscarriage, which obviously at like 6-7 months, that's like horrific. But to be fair, like the hospital, St. Paul's Eye Clinic, were absolutely incredible. They were so amazing. They arranged, so when I went to have my surgery, they arranged for one of the best midwives from the women's hospital, which is across the road, to come and to monitor the baby before I went into surgery. And then when I came out of surgery again, monitor the baby straight away. And I'll never forget that feeling when I just come out of surgery and the midwife was there and hearing Evan's heartbeat after going through that. And it was quite funny actually as well, because she's like, "Oh, do you want me to ring Aaron now so you can speak to him?" And I was in such a state crying because I was so relieved, one, that I'd actually woken up from having the surgery, and obviously to hear that Evan was okay. Yeah, and I just said to her, "Can you just go and ring him and tell him I will ring him when I'm upstairs?" And obviously again, because I was pregnant, I had this sickness anyway, and obviously when you come around from surgery and stuff, like you feel sick anyway, and I literally was still being sick. It was gross. But yeah, it was a lot. But like I said, the guys in the hospital, the doctors and the nurses were incredible, and they made sure as well that even the little things, so when you're so heavily pregnant, you can't lie on your back flat. So they made sure that like when I was on the operating table, I had a wedge, so I was kind of at a little bit of an angle, so it didn't affect, the baby in that way, which was really great. So obviously the surgery and everything went well, and the team in St. Paul's were fantastic. But then obviously I had to spend a couple of days on a ward in a room on my own because I had radiotherapy, like a radiotherapy surgery. So I had a plaque in my eye, and obviously they don't like to have a lot of people around radiotherapy. So I was in a room on my own, basically 90% of the time, like hardly anybody came in to check on me. The ward that I was on a general ward, because the ward that I should have been on, the cancer ward, was being used as a COVID ward. And in all honesty, like that experience, those couple of days, were probably some of the worst days I've had. A lot of people, like the nurses and stuff, didn't even know I was pregnant and tried offering me stuff that I knew that I wasn't allowed to have. Aaron obviously couldn't come and see me, and I think for me, obviously being that far away from home, and him not being able to come and see me in hospital, like, it was awful. And like, it makes me think about women who, in the early days of COVID in 2020, like how awful it must have been, obviously, when everything was so uncertain and so strict as well, like even more so about, giving birth and things. Like, it must have been awful and scary. So after I had the plaque removed, the same day, I basically checked myself out of the hospital, which probably wasn't the best idea. But I just needed to be with Aaron, and I knew I was in better care, to be honest. As long as we had the tools that we needed, he basically looked after me then, from the time that we left hospital. I wasn't in a great place between, I think, having the surgery and, well, it was until Evan was born, really. As soon as Evan was born, I felt like I had everything that I'd been through was kind of leading up to this. And I felt like I obviously had my purpose. Like I had a reason to get up and to look after myself and to look after someone. And I'm so grateful in a way that I was pregnant when I was diagnosed with cancer, because I had a reason to, how can I explain? Like I had something else to think about other than myself. And like when I was going to all my appointments, when I was in my surgery and everything, like I was very much aware of what I can feel, Evan can also feel. So I always tried to make sure that I was calm. I practiced my breathing, and yeah. As I'm talking, I'm in the office and I can see a picture of Evan. So I'm trying not to break down. But yeah, so I honestly feel like I was so looking forward, like I said, from a young age of being pregnant and, you know, going through that. And I kind of feel like my pregnancy was taken away from me in a way, because like as soon as I got diagnosed with cancer, like I wanted to have a natural birth. I wanted to have to give birth in water if I could, and all these other things. And I wanted to give birth in this hospital and be midwife led and everything. And as soon as I got diagnosed, I felt like as if everything that I wanted so badly got taken away. And we had, because obviously of the cancer, we ended up having extra scans and stuff. And then there was concerns around the size of Evan. They thought that he was going to be a really big baby, and they tried to offer induction and everything, which I didn't really want at all. And they were, obviously, you're going to all these appointments as well on your own, and you can only take whatever you take in these appointments back then to your partner to talk to him about, or to them about. And yeah, in the end, we had a C-section. And this is probably going to sound really, really strange, but having that C-section and giving birth to Evan was one of the most enjoyable experiences of my life. It was incredible. The only thing I was worried about having a C-section was having that injection into your spine. So they inject you first with local anaesthetic, I'm guessing it is, and then they put the spinal injection in then, which obviously numbs everything so you can't feel anything. And it actually was not as bad at all as what I was expecting. But again, because I was so aware of whatever I was feeling, Evan could feel, I just remained super calm and chill. And yeah, it was as natural as possible as it could have been. And it was awesome. Everything went well, with the exception though. So, because of the cancer, the consultant that we spoke to said that they would send the placenta off to be tested just to make sure that nothing was passed on to Evan, which obviously, being told that, you know, that was great. I made sure that it was noted in the birth plan. On the day that Evan was born, you know, I made sure like the midwife knew about it. It was written in the notes of the C-section where you have to sign to say you agree to all the risks, etc. When the midwives handed over to a different midwife, I made sure she knew as well. And basically I was told not to worry, it's going to be sorted. And then weeks later, after Evan was born, I still hadn't heard any results. And long story short, they didn't send it off. So that was a lot for me to process, because obviously, having gone through everything that I'd been through, and then not having the confirmation. Oh, it was, and still is now, to be honest. It still is a lot. And even though, like, Evan, you know, is fine, he's really healthy and he's great, there's always that at the back of my mind. Like, every time he's a bit poorly, or, you know, if something's just not right with him one day, literally, it just goes back to that. So I think it was probably about, so he was born in March, April, May. So I think it was in the June time, maybe, that we found out that they didn't send off the placenta. And then in the July, we went up to Liverpool for my first checkup since having the surgery. And then obviously I was told that the cancer was still there, which is something that I just was not expecting. I expected, right, you've had the surgery, come back, yeah, everything's gone, great, you can move on with your life now, and that's it. But that didn't happen. And I think that was it then. Like, I just could not cope. I think I went to the doctors with Evan for one of his checkups, I think he might have been for one of his rounds of injections, and I spoke to the midwife and literally had a meltdown. Like, again, they were brilliant, and my regular health visitor, she wasn't there that day, but she called me, I think it was the next day, and told me about Maggie's, and then that's how I started to go there then. And even though I'm obviously getting emotional talking about it now, the only reason I'm able to talk about this now is because of how Maggie's helped me. And it's mad what talking to somebody who you don't know, who doesn't know you, doesn't know what you've been through, doesn't know your history, how much that can help. I think being able to talk about it, like I said, to somebody that doesn't know you, because I think when I was diagnosed initially, like, I think I rang 2 people to tell them I had cancer, and everybody else, Aaron, bless him, he had to ring all my family pretty much to tell them the news, which obviously I was very grateful for, because I don't think I would have had the words, you know. I think when I was diagnosed, the country was going back into lockdown again, and we were all told that we couldn't spend Christmas with our families. And I felt like I didn't want to put an even bigger downer on that. So we did wait until after Christmas to tell a few of our friends. But even then, you know, like, we didn't really tell that many people. Not many people knew. And in a way, like I've mentioned before in the other podcast, that because we were in lockdown, and obviously having gone through the surgery and stuff, like, I wasn't going out and about, only to, like, my midwife appointments. Like, obviously, because my eye as well and my face for a couple of weeks after the surgery, like, I didn't look right, obviously. So I was quite worried about bumping into people and things. So, you know, having that time to not have to worry about going outside and stuff too much and bumping into people, like, that helped. And obviously, you know, I think now, having talked to, you know, counsellors at Maggie's and to my friends and other people about having cancer, that's what made me realise how important it is to talk about it. And initially I didn't really want to tell, you know, Aaron or my family exactly how I felt, because obviously it's upsetting for them to hear it as well. So I'm glad I had Maggie's to talk to, because now I've had those conversations, like, with Aaron. I still have those conversations, like, because how I feel obviously changes quite a lot. So since, well, I'm not really sure if it's since having cancer or since becoming a mum, how my life has changed. I was in a job for, well, it would have been 11 and a half years by the time I finished. Since being diagnosed and obviously being pregnant and on maternity and everything, I probably wasn't treated the way that I should have been treated. And a lot of things happened and didn't happen. And it really made me realise, as cliche as it sounds, the importance of the way you choose to live your life and what you decide to do. I didn't really want to be part of something that didn't, after everything and all the work that I put in, and they weren't there to be there for me when I was going through the toughest time of my entire life. I think a couple of things have obviously changed. Like, my mindset has completely changed. I used to be all about work and building that career, going as high as I could go. And now I'm like, as long as I've got enough money to pay my bills and do a couple of fun things, that's enough for me. Health is wealth, which is something that I talk about quite often. There is not enough money in the world that's worth more than your health. I think especially when you become a parent as well. Since becoming a mum, obviously your body goes through a hell of a lot of a change when you have a baby. And body image is something that I have always struggled with since being a child. I was bullied quite a lot when I was in school, and body image has always been an issue for me. But I think since being diagnosed with cancer, like, obviously that puts things into a lot of perspective for you, and like, by no means am I like 100% happy with the way that I look. I don't know if there is anybody that is, but I think now I am a lot kinder to myself, and it is still a struggle. But a couple of years ago, I would never have gone to Aberafan Beach in a bather or a bikini and gone in the sea. Like, that just would never have happened. I think it's so important to do the things that you love and not worry about what other people think about the way that you look, which is easier said than done. I understand. I do also think that there should be more for mums, especially in the first couple of weeks or months after having a baby. I definitely think that there should be more support out there, or more checkups, or just more conversations about how women are feeling after having a baby. I don't think there is enough. There definitely should be some sort of appointment with a nurse or GP about you, the baby too, but I think there definitely should be something. There definitely needs to be more. So Evan is, he's fucking awesome. He is 2.5 now, which is wild. I cannot believe that he's going to be 3 in March. He is in playgroup or preschool, whatever you want to call it. He goes every morning, 5 days a week, and it's been great for him. He has only just started to, I say talk. He he could tell you the whole story of Brown Bear. The Eric Carle book, he can literally repeat the whole thing, and yeah, but you can't have any conversation with him. But he's starting to repeat words now, and like every day he's coming out with something new, and it's amazing. And I think that's one of my favourite things about being his mum, is that I think sometimes you can underestimate them. Like, I was honestly worried about his speech, being 2.5 and not being able to talk yet, when other children that are able to, like, you can properly have a conversation with, like. And I know they always say you can't compare kids, everyone goes at their own pace, which is absolutely true. But again, like, a part of me was like, is this because of what happened when he was born? the whole saga with the placenta. Is this something that, happened when I was pregnant, etc., etc.? But obviously it's not. But yeah, he's incredible. Like, this stuff that sometimes that he says or does, and like I just can't believe that he's done it. Like, they're so, like, children are so clever and they take so much in, so much more than what you actually think and give him credit for, I think. But he's doing absolutely amazing, and I absolutely love being his mum. He honestly saved me, I think, and he still does, like when I'm having a bad day, even if he does come into our bedroom at 3 o'clock in the morning to wake us up and to come cuddle or whatever, like, it doesn't matter how much little sleep I have. Like, he still, like, even if he does come in and wake me up and we've had no sleep, like, honestly, it's the best thing ever. Like, I would not change it for the world. He just makes everything better. Like, when I'm having a bad day, just seeing his face, seeing him learn something new for the first time, yeah, it's awesome. It, like, helps me forget sometimes too. I knew this was going to be an emotional one. Yeah, and sometimes, like, I forget everything, and then obviously not blows up, but like, just get reminded. But everything is fine because I'm on yearly appointments now. I can't remember if I mentioned that in the last episode. So we only have to go up to Liverpool now once a year, which is great. And which is something I'm still trying to get my mind around, to be honest. But yeah, being a mum is hard, but it's the best thing in the world. I think no matter what stage you are in, whether you're newborn stage, whether they're just learning to crawl, learning to walk, learning to talk. I think every stage of your baby, your child growing up, it all comes with its challenges. And I especially worry about being a good mum. There's that quote, isn't it? If you worry about being a good mum, then you already are one. I just want to say to all the mums out there that are listening to this episode, you're a fucking class mum and you're doing a really, really amazing job. To end this podcast, I'm going to do a song recommendation. And this episode's song recommendation is a song called We by Descendants from their Everything Sucks album. And the reason why I've decided to choose this song is because we obviously play Descendants quite a lot in our house, and every time Evan sees the Milo artwork on the album covers, he gets really excited, and when they come on, he kind of like nods his head and he starts to dance, and Aaron plays, Descendants on guitar for Evan and stuff as well. So I think this song is quite an apt song if you read the lyrics. Yeah, I love them both very, very much. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Together, we can rise above cancer.